Hello everyone, I disappeared again, this time for health reasons. My health is going downhill and there is nothing I can do about it. I'm okay with it though. Today I want to focus on World War Z while I'm in decent shape. Okay, World War Z is basically Left 4 Dead with classes. I'm going to cover the co-op campaign side of this and not the PvP side. PvP right now is very broken and needs a serious rebalance before it is even worth talking about. With that in mind, let's go ahead and look at these classes. You'll notice I have them all up on the screen right here. There's Gunslinger, Hellraiser, Medic, Fixer, Slasher, and Exterminator. Gunslinger is basically your soldier. It works well with any weapon, just about. Hellraiser is your demolition expert. This class focuses specifically on blowing things up. Medic's straightforward. It has a focus on submachine guns. It can upgrade to a TMP5 later on, which is a tier 2 weapon. We'll talk about that in a little bit. Fixer is your other support class. It's more or less a damage support. It gives the party explosive ammunition as well as refilling ammunition. Slasher is your mix between melee and guns. It is an up-close and personal class. Finally, you have Exterminator. Exterminator is a hybrid. It has a mix of almost everything. It does firearms damage, it has increased mortar and stationary machine gun bonuses, as well as being able to mask itself later on, which is the equivalent of cloak in this game. Exterminator is more or less a jack of all trades in certain aspects. So this one is not going to be able to do the explosive damage of, say, Hellraiser, and it's not going to be able to do the gun damage of a gunslinger. Still, it's an interesting class, though. That kind of gives you the crash course in your classes and how they all function. Let's go ahead and look at weapons real quickly. Okay, now for weapons, they come in tiers, except for heavy weapons. Heavy weapons are their own thing. You'll notice there's Tier 1, Tier 2, and Tier 3. Tier 1 is all of your starting weapons. Gunslinger, I think it's Medic, and Slasher start with SMG, which would be this one here. Hellraiser starts with a shotgun along with Exterminator. Fixer starts with a scout rifle. Later on you'll get perks to start with these other weapons, but Tier 3 is the one that you will not have a perk for. This is something that has to be picked up. That's kind of the crash course in weapons. Now, while I'm here, I want to go ahead and get into this a little bit, because there are a couple things that I've seen people make a mistake of. When it comes to this entire thing, you'll notice that you can get experience with a weapon, and as it levels up, you can upgrade it. The mistake that I've noticed is people are buying these level 2, 3, and 4 upgrades. This game actually allows you to go straight to 5. You can buy the 5th upgrade and then skip over all the other ones. This will save you a lot of time and money if you just wait it out. The way I did it was I played on normal difficulty until I farmed the experience for all of these weapons. When I got the weapons as experience as I needed to be, then I switched the difficulty to hard to try to make the money to pay for all of this. That's something you can do too to make things easier on yourself. Another mistake I'm starting to see is people saying that you need to go silenced weapons. I disagree with this. and I'll use the advanced SMG to show you why. You'll notice that I have the 5th upgrade for the advanced SMG on the bottom side. I could have picked the one up here, but you'll notice that in comparison, that one has a square less damage. When you get into higher difficulties, every ounce of damage matters, especially when you're playing a class like Medic, for example. Medic just does not do the damage that Gunslinger or Exterminator will do when it comes to firearms. This small block means a significant amount to your ammo count and as well as your survivability. If you're forced into a situation where you are using weapons that don't have silencers, then just use your melee weapon to start killing off the zombies when you start out. But later on, it's not going to really matter anyways, silenced or not. I mean, if you happen to have a silencer on it, great, but who cares if it's silenced or not once you start getting to the hordes. Once you get to the hordes, that stat is what matters. Now, let me go ahead and talk about that just real quickly so I can clarify. Oops, wrong button. Okay. Medic does have a perk for firearm damage. You notice it down here, it's fighting fit. But look what it says. When your whole team have more than half health. I can tell you that in hard and insane difficulty, the chances of your teammates having more than half health throughout the campaign is near impossible to achieve. So this really does not help as much as you would think it would. While I'm on that, we can go and cover one other thing too, another little tip. You'll notice that each class has a row of 3 perks. You can only have one active per row at a time. So you'll notice I have Forgive and Forget on Medic, which is friendly fire damage reduced by 25%, versus Fighting Fit. It's because I know this will last longer than Fighting Fit. So that's some things to keep in mind as you're building up your weapons and classes. Now that I've covered the game's basics as well as some tips and tricks to help you through it, I want to go ahead and talk about what I think of the game and whether or not that you should buy it. This game is extremely short, like Left 4 Dead. There's only 4 campaigns for co-op. It is extremely challenging though. The game spawns way more zombies than any other zombie game that I've ever played. While I appreciate the challenge, the one thing that I'm kind of not appreciating with the game is in the fact that there's really not that much in terms of expandability. What I mean by this is, for example, you'll notice there's only one melee weapon. That means Slasher is stuck with the same melee weapon for the entirety of the game. I know that this game is only $35, but I was expecting to at least see, you know, a melee weapon specific to Slasher that gives it more range or something. The other thing too is that they added things in like the battle rifle, which are your single fire weapons. The problem with these weapons like this is it may seem great to have a single fire weapon, but in reality it isn't. You'll notice that at tier 5, it only has a magazine size of 25. Compare that to, say, an assault carbine, which has a magazine of 60 at tier 5. It does more damage than the battle rifle, has a higher rate of fire, and it has more magazine. I was expecting to see some more expansion, or at least more, I guess you can say, emphasis on variety. Because the way the game is now, the only weapons that really matter are basically the assault rifles, assault carbines, shotguns, and SMGs. They're the only ones that matter. As I mentioned earlier, PvP is broken. So that's disappointing to see that the other half of this game is just not in a good state. To top it off, the balance isn't the only issue. I've noticed that on PvP there is a lot of stuck lobbies and disconnects. I'm sure these issues will be corrected at a later time, but for right now, I will say that this game is only worth it if you're into these kinds of games. It is $35 luckily, so you're not throwing a whole bunch of money at it, but I think that they probably could have done a little bit better. Not just in how they handled this aspect of the game, PvP and the others, but I think that if they focused entirely on the campaign and not putting in PvP, they probably could have made more campaigns. I would have preferred more campaigns than PvP. That's because I don't really like to play PvP, and also because I think that this game has more potential to it that could have been unlocked should they have, if they had explored the single player side before branching out into PvP. I think if they made PvP a expansion later on, that would have been better. But that is just me. Overall, despite all that, I think that if this is your kind of game, $35 isn't a whole lot of money in the gaming world, so if you want to do it, go for it. I can say that if you're okay with the short campaigns and being okay with only playing that, then yeah, it's worth the $35. Okay, that's the most I have to say. Thanks for listening.